Alright, hello everyone, welcome into another episode of Matt Sports Talk, and I apologize, let me see if I can adjust my camera real quick to where it won't appear really tilted. Try to fix that. That's a lot better. Alright, we're good then. Perfect. Alright, so now in this video, first I want to say Happy New Year, and thanks so much for tuning into, well, not tuning into, but thanks so much for checking out my channel. And it's hard to believe that, believe it or not, 1 year ago next Sunday is when I started this channel doing all of the daily game recaps for the teams in the Crossroads League and during national tournament projections. So for those of you that have been with me for just about this whole year, I really appreciate that, and it really means a lot to me to have you tune into this channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, maybe you're brand new, please hit the subscribe button down below so you are first notified whenever I upload new episodes. And I really appreciate any feedback that you provide me. My goal is to hit 500 subscribers by February 21st, which is the end of the Crossroads League regular season in terms of men's and women's basketball, which I know I primarily talk about. That's actually my main focus is the Crossroads League during daily game recaps and talking about the national tournament projections. Not now for national tournament projections, I still like to talk about everybody else, and the NAIA based on the RPI, the ARC, the Massey ratings, which teams that I think have the best chance of being in. And now that I, have understood the criteria a little bit better in terms of national tournament selection, I wanted to start off the new year by giving you my first projection of a national tournament teams, which teams are for sure in as of today, which teams are roughly in that middle of the pack, firmly locked in, or firmly in right now, so to speak, but not totally a lock. And then the next tier of teams that are on the bubble right now but could drastically use some improvement in the second half of the season. And then in the final tier of teams, talking about those teams that are down towards the bottom of the cut line and are in danger of not even making the national tournament, and then which of roughly the first 4 to 8 teams that would be out of the national tournament. And again, part of the selection committee is talking about roughly the top 68 teams listed in the RPI are the teams that, of course, there's only 64 teams that make the national tournament. So, you look at the RPI rankings 1 through 68, that kind of gives us a pretty good idea for which teams are for sure in the national tournament and which teams are not. So without further ado, we're going to dive in and talk more about that. And if I did not mention at the top of this video that if you're brand new to my channel, please subscribe and please share my channel with your friends, your family, anybody that you know. I would really appreciate any feedback that you may provide me, and I truly appreciate all of you that are subscribed, and please keep subscribing as well. And now for this video, if you are interested in me, well, not so much interested, but my goal now is recording, and now I'm still going to do daily game recaps for all 10 Crossroads League schools for the men and the women. So make sure that you stay tuned for all of that. On top of that, I plan on recording weekly videos. Well, not weekly, but recording videos whenever the latest RPI, ARC, and quad records are released, and then making national tournament projections based on that, based on the quad records, the ARC rankings, and the RPI as well, and also taking a look at the updated Massey rating as well, and again basing my criteria off of that. And then right before selection show Thursday, which is coming up, I believe, March 7th, I will be recording a final video that week, giving you my final national tournament projections based on the final Massey, RPI, ARC, and quad record ratings. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. And of course, at that time, I'll also be looking at 1 through 68 team statistics. So and making sure and hopefully help you understand and hopefully help you understand a little bit better the teams that for sure will be in the national tournament based on that, and really be able to help you out in case you are unaware of the criteria. And I apologize that my phone is slightly tilted in this video, and I have it sitting on top of one of my bed pillows, so I apologize if the screen looks a little bit tilted, and that is the reason why. So now the next RPI ratings come out on Monday, this coming Monday, January 5th. So I'll be recording a video on Monday going over my updated projections 1 through 68 in terms of the updated RPI ratings, and based on 1 through 68 on Monday, giving you a better idea and a better understanding of which 64 teams would be in the national tournament, which ones would be on the bubble, all that good stuff, and that will be coming up on Monday, as well as the daily game recaps for all the Crossroads League schools for the games coming up on Saturday. So again, without further ado, let's dive in. Now, again, this was as of December 15th with the latest RPI rating. So again, take that with a little grain of salt. So the following teams 1 through 39 in the RPI, these are all the teams that are for sure a lock into the national tournament, again, as of today, and going over 1 through 39 in that order. In terms of the RPI rankings, you would have Dordt, Dakota State, Marion, Freed-Hardman, William Carey, Loyola, Rio Grande, Tennessee Southern, Bethel, Tennessee, Evangel out of Missouri, Campbellsville, Kentucky, Friends, Kansas, St. Francis, Indiana, Oregon Tech, Lindsey Wilson, Huntington, Indiana, Eastern Oregon, Columbia, Missouri, Lewis Clark State, Cumberland's, Kentucky, Montana Tech, Taylor, Indiana, Southern Oregon, Mid-America Nazarene, out of Kansas, Briarcliff, Iowa, Science of the Arts, Southeastern, Spring Arbor, Michigan, Langston, Faulkner out of Alabama, Corbin out of Oregon, Mid-America Christian out of Oklahoma, Hastings, LSU, Shreveport, Dakota Wesleyan, as well as Wiley out of Texas, Bryan, Tennessee, Benedictine, Kansas, North American, and I believe they are in New Mexico. So those are your 1 through 39 as of today. Let me see if I can actually adjust my camera here real quick to where it doesn't look quite as tilted, and that's a little bit too much headroom. Try and tilt that down a little bit more. Maybe move it back here a little bit, and see. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So those are your 1 through 39 teams that for sure would be in a national tournament as of today. So looking at teams now 40th to 49th, this tier of teams are firmly in right now, but they could definitely use a little bit more improvement and hopefully get more wins here in the second half of the season. And those teams would be Arkansas Baptist, St. Xavier, Illinois, Sterling out of Kansas, Montana State Northern, College of Idaho, Providence, Montana, Shawnee State, Cumberland, Tennessee, Indiana Tech, and Grandview out of Iowa. Those are the teams that are probably, kind of like probably roughly about a 60 to 75% chance that those teams would make the national tournament if that started today. And those, again, would be your team, roughly about a 60 to 75% chance of that those teams would be in the national tournament if the selection show was today. And then looking at 50 to 59, this is a tier of teams that would be on the top list, so to speak, of on the bubble. Like if there was a list of teams on the bubble, the very top part of the paper, these would be your teams 50 to 59 that would be on the very top of that on the bubble list, down towards the very bottom of the bubble list. And those teams would be, surprisingly, Indiana Wesleyan. I'm going to talk more about them in just a second. Northwestern Iowa, Concordia, Nebraska, Milligan, Tennessee, Northwestern Ohio, Reinhardt out of Georgia, Texas A&M University, San Antonio, College of the Ozarks, Montana Western, and Bethel out of Kansas. Those would be your teams, roughly the top part of the paper of being on the bubble, down towards the very bottom of the paper with being on the bubble. And then your 60 to 68, well, your 60 to 64 rather, these would be your teams that are definitely on the very bottom of the bubble, and more so, these would be your teams that would be on the danger, kind of more so on kind of more so on a list that is not very good. You would not have you roughly have probably about I would say about a 10 to 15% chance of making the national tournament, 60 to 68, and these teams would be Carroll, Montana, Pikeville, Kentucky, Rocky Mountain out of Montana, Coastal Georgia, St. Thomas, Rochester Christian, Indiana Southeast, Morningside, and Lourdes out of Ohio. So those would be all your teams that would would more than likely be the teams that would be either the last four in or the first four out. And the first four out, at least right now, more than likely would be Rochester Christian, IU Southeast, Morningside, and Lourdes out of Ohio. So talking more about that, so taking a minute to talk about that, you look at a team, like Lourdes, they play in the WAC, which is a super competitive conference. Now, you look at them on the year, they really don't have any quality wins right now. So I could see that being a good reason why. Now, Morningside, 67th. Now they are. I mean, this is a very competitive team because Morningside, they play in a super tough conference. That being the GPAC, and my camera here keeps falling over. So let me try and fix that here real quick, and get this screen back up, and see if, well, that's too much headroom. Try and fix it. Okay, there we go. That's better. So then you look at a team like Morningside. They play in the GPAC, which is a super competitive conference. Now based on the GPAC, obviously there's a lot of good teams that play in that conference, being Morningside, Dordt, Briarcliff, Northwestern out of Iowa. You also have, I believe, Dakota Wesleyan's in that conference. So it is super, super competitive. And now Morningside does, they do have plenty of time to improve, that's for sure. And then you look at, IU Southeast, really haven't done much this year in terms, they're 2-6. And again, this was as of December 15th, so take this with a little bit of salt. You look at Rochester Christian, they have some upset wins against Indiana Tech. They had another upset win. I don't remember who the other team was they upset. But obviously having the win over Indiana Tech definitely helps them. They're roughly, probably among the first four out right now. It just depends. Now, again, it could depend on, if they win their conference tournament, or if they end up being the, tournament runners-up, or if they end up being the runner-up in the regular season, being the 2 seed in the WAC. We don't know how that's going to play out. So they definitely have some room to improve. You look at St. Thomas. So St. Thomas is roughly on that cutoff line of maybe being the very last team in, maybe being the very first one out. Now, St. Thomas, they have a bad loss. Well, not really a bad loss, but they have a loss to College of the Ozarks and the mini tournament that they had, or that they hosted rather, a couple of weeks ago. Literally one day after these RPI rankings were released. Now, for St. Thomas, College of the Ozarks, not really a bad loss. Now, what really helps St. Thomas is, they play in the Sun Conference, super competitive. And they definitely have a lot of size. I mean, they have, I believe, four girls that are 6 foot or taller. So, they have the size to compete down in the paint, and they do have a lot of scores, that's for sure. Now, another thing that helps St. Thomas is, outside of playing in the Sun Conference, is that they had a big upset win against Indiana Wesleyan, 67-53. So, they have that ranked win going for them. They definitely have a lot of room to improve. That is for sure. Now, and they definitely have time to do that. I'll tell them that. So I'm going to record a part 2 video coming up, because one video is there's just so much information. And again, I'm not going to talk for that long about, I'm not going to go into every single team on this list, but I did want to take a couple of minutes and talk about Indiana Wesleyan specifically. So make sure that you stay tuned for that in part 2 of my video coming up here momentarily, and I will see you then.